The city buzzed with life as the morning sun cast golden rays over the towering glass buildings. Inside one of the largest corporate offices, Daniel sat behind his mahogany desk, his sharp suit immaculate, his expression calm and commanding. The office was silent except for the low hum of the air conditioner and the distant chatter of employees starting their day. Daniels was known across the city as a powerful, brilliant businessman, a mentor, a leader, a man everyone respected. But beneath his polished exterior lurked a darkness only a few had glimpsed. He swiveled in his chair, scrolling through messages on his private phone. Pictures of smiling young women filled the screen, each one a former employee whose dreams had been crushed after falling for his carefully spun lies. His lips curled into a smirk as he stopped at one photo. "Pathetic," he muttered, deleting the image with a flick of his finger. To the world, Daniels was a hero of business. To these women, he was a nightmare they couldn't escape. In the bustling, open workspace outside, Frida adjusted the collar of her crisp, white blouse and took a deep breath. It was her first day at the company, a dream opportunity she had fought for with every ounce of strength. Growing up in poverty, Frida had clawed her way through school, working nights, skipping meals, and refusing to let hardship define her. Landing a job at Daniel's prestigious company felt like victory itself. She smiled faintly, whispering to herself, "You've got this," before stepping toward her desk. From his office window, Daniel spotted her immediately. She was different from the others, confident, graceful, and fiercely determined. He leaned forward, intrigued. "New blood," he murmured, already plotting his approach. That morning, he summoned her with a casual email. "See me in my office at noon." Frida's heart pounded as she read the message. Meeting the CEO on her first day felt overwhelming, but she forced herself to stay calm. At exactly noon, she knocked lightly on his door. Daniels greeted her with a warm smile, his voice silky smooth. "Frida, right? Come in. Sit down." The conversation began innocently enough. Daniels praised her resume, her work ethic, her determination to succeed. He asked about her family, her dreams, the struggles she had faced. His tone was gentle, understanding, a mentor eager to guide a promising young talent. Frida felt her guard lower slightly, believing she had found a boss who truly cared. But then, the tone shifted. His compliments grew personal. "You have an elegance about you," he said, his gaze lingering too long. "Not everyone here has potential like yours." Frida stiffened, unsure how to respond. She smiled politely, trying to steer the conversation back to work, but Daniels was relentless. Over the following weeks, Daniel's interest in Frida became impossible to ignore. He sent her late-night messages under the guise of urgent work matters, complimented her appearance in meetings, and created situations where they were alone together. Frida felt trapped, torn between fear and ambition. She needed this job. Her mother relied on the money she sent home, and the thought of returning to the life she had escaped terrified her. One evening, Daniels cornered her in the elevator. The office was nearly empty, the hum of the machinery echoing around them. "Frida," he said softly, "I see so much potential in you. I want to mentor you personally." His hand brushed against hers, making her flinch. "Sir, I just want to focus on my work," she stammered, stepping back. Daniel's expression hardened for a split second before melting into a smile. "Of course. But think about it. Opportunities like this don't come twice." That night, Frida lay awake staring at the ceiling, tears streaming silently down her face. She felt suffocated, powerless. If she refused him, she risked losing everything she had fought for. If she gave in, she would lose herself. A week later, Daniels called her into his office again. This time, he didn't bother with pretense. "You're a smart woman," he said smoothly. "You know how the world works. I can take you places no one else can. But I need loyalty." His eyes bored into hers, daring her to defy him. Frida's voice trembled as she whispered, "And if I say no?" Daniels leaned back, his smile cold. "Then someone else will get the opportunities meant for you. Simple as that." The unspoken threat hung heavy in the room. Frida walked out with her stomach in knots, knowing she was running out of options. That night, she made a decision she would regret for the rest of her life. In the weeks that followed, Daniels grew bolder. Frida played her part, showing up to work each day with a carefully composed smile while inside. She felt hollow. She noticed whispers from other women in the office, Women who avoided Daniel's gaze and left the company suddenly, their dreams shattered. Frida began to suspect that she wasn't the first, and she wouldn't be the last. One Friday evening, Daniels invited her to an exclusive dinner at a high-end restaurant. She went reluctantly, fearing what might happen if she refused. There, Daniels introduced her to his old friend Samuel, a wealthy businessman with a sharp tongue and an even sharper eye for trouble. As the night went on, Samuel grew loose-lipped under the influence of expensive wine. He leaned toward Frida and chuckled. "You're one of his new favorites, huh? Don't take it personally. He's had plenty before you. Promises them the world, then tosses them aside like garbage." Classic Daniels. The words hit Frida like a physical blow. She stared at Samuel, her mind racing, while Daniels laughed carelessly beside him. At that moment, everything became clear. She wasn't special. She was just another pawn in Daniel's cruel game. Frida excused herself from the table, locking herself in the bathroom to hide her tears. As she stared into the mirror, something inside her shifted. The fear that had once controlled her began to harden into something else: anger. She wiped her tears, her reflection now cold and determined. From that night on, Frida began to plan. She would no longer be a victim. Daniels thought he knew her limits, but he had no idea what she was capable of. The following Monday, Frida arrived at the office early, her face calm, but her mind a storm of carefully laid plans. She knew Daniels would expect her to act the same as always: timid, compliant, predictable. Instead, she greeted him with a polite smile that revealed nothing of the fire burning inside her. Daniels, sitting comfortably behind his desk, didn't notice the subtle change. "Frida," he said smoothly, gesturing for her to sit. "I've been thinking about your future here. Big things are coming, and I want you right by my side." She nodded respectfully, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate your guidance," she replied evenly, her voice free of the tremor he was so used to hearing. Inside, however, her thoughts were razor-sharp. "Keep playing along," she reminded herself. "Let him think he's winning." Over the next few days, Frida quietly observed everything around her. She paid attention to the whispers in the break room, the sudden disappearances of certain female employees, and the uneasy looks exchanged whenever Daniels passed by. Pieces of a puzzle began to fit together, forming a horrifying picture of how deep his manipulation ran. Late one evening, while most of the staff had gone home, Frida stayed behind, pretending to work. She waited until Daniels left the building, then slipped into his office using the master key she had discreetly borrowed from maintenance. Her heart pounded as she moved quickly and quietly, searching through drawers, files, and hidden compartments. What she found made her stomach churn. There, in a locked drawer beneath his desk, was a black leather folder filled with photos and printed messages. Each image showed a different woman, some frightened, some smiling nervously, others visibly broken. Beside each photo were Daniel's notes, dates, promises made, and cryptic remarks about their careers. It was a sick trophy collection, proof of every life he had ruined. Frida's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, anger boiling inside her. She recognized a few of the women, former colleagues who had vanished without explanation. Her chest tightened as she realized she was just another entry waiting to be added. Among the files, she also discovered receipts and records linking Daniels to shady business deals. Bribes, fraudulent contracts, secret accounts, evidence that could destroy not just his career, but his entire empire. Frida quickly snapped photos of everything with her phone, careful to return each item exactly as she found it. As she slipped out of the office, her pulse racing, she knew there was no turning back. The next step of her plan involved Samuel, the friend who had unknowingly revealed Daniel's pattern. Frida arranged a chance meeting with him at a popular cafe near the office. When Samuel saw her, he grinned slyly. "Well, if it isn't Daniel's star employee," he teased. Frida smiled politely, hiding her disgust. "I just wanted to thank you for the other night. You really opened my eyes," she said, her tone carefully neutral. Samuel chuckled, sipping his coffee. "Ah, don't tell me you're surprised. Daniels has been like this for years. You think you're the first? Trust me, you're just one in a long line. The man can't help himself. Why doesn't anyone stop him?" Frida asked, her voice trembling slightly, not from fear, but from barely controlled rage. Samuel shrugged casually. Because he's powerful. He knows how to bury things, how to make problems disappear. Plus, most of those women are too scared to speak out. It's easier to just move on. Frida clenched her fists under the table. Not this time, she vowed silently. I won't be another ghost in his story. Over the following weeks, Frida executed her plan with precision. She gathered more evidence in secret, documenting Daniel's every move. She reached out anonymously to a few of the women whose files she had seen, gently encouraging them to share their experiences. Many were too traumatized to respond, but two brave women agreed to meet her in private. Their stories shattered Frida's heart. One had been promised a senior position only to be blacklisted from the entire industry when she refused Daniel's advances. The other had been manipulated into a relationship that left her emotionally and financially ruined. I thought it was just me, one of them whispered through tears. Frida reached across the table, squeezing her hand. It's not just you, and it's not your fault. I promise you, he will pay for what he's done. Hearing their pain strengthened Frida's resolve. This was no longer just about her survival. It was about justice for every woman Daniels had hurt. When promotion season arrived, Daniels felt certain he had Frida completely under his control. He had watched countless women break under the same pressure, each one too afraid to fight back. On the day of the final review meeting, he called Frida into his office, expecting the usual nervous trembling. Instead, she walked in with her head held high, her calm demeanor unsettling him. Frida, he said smoothly, trying to reassert dominance. This is a crucial moment for your career. I need to know you're ready to commit fully. She met his gaze without flinching. I'm ready, sir, she said softly. Daniels leaned back, satisfied. Good. Then you'll do exactly as I say. But as the meeting progressed, Frida's calm composure began to rattle him. She didn't plead, didn't falter, didn't show fear. By the end, Daniels found himself strangely unsettled, though he couldn't explain why. That night, as he prepared to leave the office, two men in dark clothing appeared from the shadows of the parking garage. Before he could react, they grabbed him, dragging him into a waiting van. Daniels fought and cursed, but their grip was unrelenting. When the blindfold finally came off, he found himself tied to a chair in a dimly lit warehouse. Frida stepped into the light, her expression icy calm. Frida? Daniels croaked, disbelief etched on his face. What is this? This, she said evenly, holding up her phone, is justice. She tapped the screen, and a slideshow of photos and documents appeared. His trophies, his secrets, his crimes. Daniel's face drained of color. You ruined lives, Frida continued, her voice steady but filled with fury. You thought no one would ever stand up to you. You were wrong. Daniels trembled, his usual arrogance replaced by raw fear. You can't do this. I'll ruin you. Frida stepped closer, her gaze unyielding. You already tried. Now it's my turn. Daniel's breathing grew ragged as the reality of his situation sank in. The ropes cut into his wrists, his suit was torn, and his perfectly styled hair now hung messily over his sweating face. This was not the powerful, untouchable CEO the world revered. This was a man stripped bare, trembling before someone he had once considered insignificant. Frida circled him slowly, like a predator closing in on prey. You think fear makes you powerful, Daniels? She said, her tone measured and cutting. All those women you hurt, all those lives you destroyed, you fed off their fear, didn't you? Daniels swallowed hard. I gave them opportunities. They knew the choices they were making, he stammered, desperate to defend himself. Frida's laugh was bitter, sharp. Opportunities? You call coercion an opportunity? You dangled their futures in front of them like bait, then crushed them when they didn't bend to your will. She paused, holding up his black leather folder. This is who you really are. The two men who had brought Daniels here, a pair of silent enforcers Frida had hired with her own savings, stood guard by the warehouse doors. Their presence alone made Daniels realize there would be no easy escape. Frida moved closer until she was inches from his face. Here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice low and deadly calm. You're going to rehire me, promote me to a senior position, and then you are going to leave me alone. Completely. If you so much as look at me the wrong way, this, she waved the folder and her phone in front of him, goes public. The photos, the texts, the proof of every bribe and dirty deal you've ever made. Daniel's eyes widened in horror. You wouldn't. It would destroy the company. It would destroy you too. Frida's expression didn't waver. I'd rather be destroyed than live in silence like the women before me. But here's the thing, Daniels, when this comes out, you'll be the only one ruined. You, not me. For the first time, Daniels truly understood the power had shifted. His voice cracked as he tried to bargain. Please, Frida, we can fix this. I'll make you rich. I'll give you anything you want. You can't give me back my dignity, Frida snapped. Her composure faltered for a moment, anger and pain flashing across her face. You can't undo what you've done to all of us. The only thing you can do now is obey. She turned to the two men and gave a subtle nod. They untied Daniels, but kept a firm grip on his shoulders. Consider this your first and final warning, she said. I'll be watching you. Every move you make. The following morning, Daniels arrived at the office bruised and shaken, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. When Frida entered his office later that day, he couldn't even meet her eyes. Wordlessly, he handed her an official promotion letter, signed and sealed. Congratulations, Senior Project Manager, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. Frida took the letter with steady hands. Thank you, sir, she said calmly, though inside her heart thundered with victory. She turned and walked out, leaving Daniels sitting alone, consumed by paranoia. As weeks turned into months, Daniels began to unravel. He saw shadows where there were none, jumped at every unexpected sound, and flinched whenever his phone buzzed. At night, he was tormented by nightmares of the women he had hurt, their faces merging into one relentless image of condemnation. Meanwhile, Frida thrived. She carried herself with quiet strength, leading projects with grace and efficiency. The other women in the office noticed the change, and slowly, they began to approach her with their own stories. Frida listened to each one, offering comfort and encouragement. She became a silent beacon of hope in a place that had once been ruled by fear. Daniels tried to maintain his facade, but his behavior grew increasingly erratic. He stopped attending company functions, avoided meetings, and locked himself in his office for hours at a time. Rumors swirled among the staff, but no one dared to confront him directly. One rainy evening, Daniels sat alone in his office, staring at a blank computer screen. The weight of his sins pressed down on him like a physical burden. Every corner of the room seemed to whisper accusations, every flicker of light a reminder of what he had done. He reached for a glass of whiskey with trembling hands, his reflection in the window a ghost of the man he once was. He couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, the company buzzed with shocking news. Daniels had resigned. There was no explanation, no farewell speech, just a short, impersonal email announcing his departure. By noon, he was gone, leaving behind an empire built on deceit and exploitation. Frida read the email in silence. A small, satisfied smile touched her lips, but she said nothing. She simply folded the paper and slipped it into her bag. As the days passed, Frida continued to rise in her career, her reputation growing stronger. She never revealed what had truly happened between her and Daniels. To the outside world, it seemed like a simple change in leadership. Only Frida knew the truth, that silence does not always mean surrender. One afternoon, as she walked through the bustling office, she paused by a group of young interns. They looked at her with admiration, their faces filled with hope. In their eager expressions, she saw her younger self, a girl determined to escape poverty, desperate to succeed. Frida knelt slightly so she could meet their eyes. Remember, she told them gently, you have more power than you think. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. The interns nodded, inspired by her quiet strength. Frida straightened and continued on her way, her steps light but purposeful. Though Daniels was gone, his shadow lingered in the form of lessons learned and strength gained. Frida knew that true victory wasn't just about defeating him. It was about breaking the cycle, creating a safer path for those who would come after her. As the sun set over the city skyline, Frida stood by her office window, watching the golden light fade into evening. She allowed herself a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and determination. Daniel's downfall had been dramatic, but Frida's triumph was quiet, steady, and enduring. Moral lesson: power built on the suffering of others can never last. Daniels believed fear made him untouchable, but in the end, it was his undoing. Frida's journey reminds us that silence is not weakness, And courage often comes in quiet, deliberate actions. To everyone listening, if this story moved you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and leave a comment about the lessons you've learned. Let's keep the conversation alive and inspire strength in others who may be facing their own battles.